Becoming a tech company is a great ambition of nearly any company. But the main question is, of course, why? But more important, how? Of course, dilemmas. Let's take it away. Good morning, this is Tech TV and we're going to talk about how to become a tech company. And I've got, of course, great leaders at the bench, so to speak. So quick round of introduction. Isaka,
yeah.
Good morning. Daniel Picnic, good morning. Ron, Signify, good morning. And Ragnar from PwC, good morning. But before we start, let's get a little setting the scene by my buddy Ben. Ben, are you in the house?
I'm in the house. I'm cleaning my glasses. So,
great.
Hey, there's Rob.
That's a fundamental thing to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Ben, everybody's talking about the fact that you have quite some number of sleepless nights because there's so much happening in this world of tech, right? Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So bring me your flavor of today, right?
The flavor of today was, of course, the Vision. The Vision Pro from Apple, what's happening over there, but it's not so relevant in this case, in my opinion. But in fact, it is, because it's also how to become a tech company. Yeah, great pictures. It's like Apple is really good in making great products, and there's a product company, and from the DNA. Meta, Facebook, is really good in services. They serve you the best advertisements you would like to have. So Meta is trying to build something, a product. And Apple is trying to build a product. So it's really nice who is better in building a product. But we know you have to integrate that product and the service. So your subject today is how to become a tech company. So it's how to, like, when you are something and you have to change in what you are, that is quite difficult. But that subject, how to become a tech company, I was also, last week I checked, maybe you've seen it also, Rob, Succession, the series of HBO. It's really a great series. And I won't give any spoilers, but one of the things in season 4, I won't give any spoilers. Then the founder of so Kendall, that is one of the guys, he is presenting a new product, and it's called Living Plus, and it is a boat where people can retire in a boat. But he presented as a tech company, so everyone is enthusiastic because it's become a tech company. But it isn't a tech company; it's just a boat with people in it. So a lot of companies they say we are a tech company, but in fact they aren't a tech company, because when you have to know what are the things you are a tech company. A few things. So when you are a tech company, in my opinion, it's only my opinion. So there is a lot of software involved, and software creates ecosystem. So when you can create an ecosystem, that's always better than you said only a boat with old people in it. 2, it's really smart when you have software, you have zero marginal cost. So you have no cost to expand it. We know that's really nice, but when you build this product, it's only one product. But when you, for example, Google, you can expand it, zero marginal cost. A third thing is it's always improving. And then you see also the glasses. My wife asked me, so what do you think the Vision Pro, how long will it last? I said, now maybe 1 year. So it's better when you improve it always. And also then you can expand it all over the world. Software, you can expand it all over the world. And the transaction costs are often, when you have a SaaS product, it's often really low. So there are certain elements that makes a company a tech company. And now you say how? Yeah, you start with, that's the last thing I will mention, small iterations. It's always better to do things 20 times 10,000 euros than 1 times 200,000. So you have to experiment, you have to test a lot. We all know that, but often you see a lot of people don't do it because it's often you have an idea, Rob, and you want to expand that idea to the world because it's your idea.
Right.
But as you know, we have to test it. And in the end, we test the best service offering we would like to have. And I will finalize with the Vision Pro. Now they put it in the market. They want all the developers that they put, they don't know which direction, that the developers need to make applications on it. They are looking directions. So test it to have the great service in everything we build in the future.
Right. Just a small kick out. Does Signify, does Picnic touch the box in becoming a tech or even be a tech company?
Now, they have fixed products because Picnic, I'm a fan. I order my ananas at Picnic. Yeah, that's a fixed product. But how they do it, the whole internal process, that's really, really a tech company. So that's great. And Signify, I think they became a tech company. I'm gonna listen to you all because I'm really curious how Signify did it. So that's also important to change it from the right to the left and from the left to the right.
What? We still can follow you, so that's great. Ben, thanks again. Ciao, buddy. Right, great. A lot of energy, but also a lot of thoughts, right? So, first reflection, Daniel.
Quite a few thoughts, and I think it's very nice how Ben is framing and phrasing it, what a tech company is. Maybe one nuance to it, what he's describing as properties is very much what is a digital tech company, because all this kind of zero marginal cost, etc., is about digital technology. It's a little bit less about physical technology, but if you talk about something like glasses, etc., it's always a combination, like Tesla, between digital and physical technology. Maybe two kind of additional points. If you, when we're looking into companies and thinking a bit of, is it a tech or not tech company? By the way, it's always a spectrum. It's never really binary. What is pretty important is also that you have to have people behind the company that can do system thinking.
Yes.
And system thinking means essentially that you think a little bit about business processes, product models that are able to evolve over time, that are not static, based on technical innovation, but also product innovation. And that is absolutely what drives and what differentiates companies that are basically tech-driven versus companies that are not yet.
Right. So your vision on that, Isaka, and happy to be that you're here, live from Senegal, so to speak, nearly, right? Yeah. So your vision on that?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think I completely agree with Daniel. The way I look at it is really to become a tech company. Vision Pro that was mentioned is a perfect example. So I heard someone quote, I didn't retain the name, who said, Apple is a great company that is really very good at making you something you didn't think you needed feel indispensable. I think that's a great way to put it. So to Daniel's point, and if you want to, as a company, you want to become a tech company, I think it's really essential to find out what is the core essence that makes you, that makes you tick. What works for you? What are you about? What are you bringing to the table? And then that essence, and that manifests itself throughout your organization, right. And you need to find a way to link that to the levers that will make technology work for you. So when you do that, people are in their natural element. If they are in their natural element, and they will perform best, and they will relate the best to the things that will really work for you and for the company. So becoming a tech company become a natural thing, as opposed to be a theater. I call it a theater because there's a lot of theater going on in the industry.
Right. Ragnar, over to you. Looking in your practice, PwC, you encounter these kind of discussions, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think to build a couple of bridges, sometimes it feels in becoming a tech company or being a tech company that it's a solution seeking for a problem. So we drive an innovation and then start looking what we can actually do with that. For instance, on those glasses with Apple. At the same time, and I think that is the glue that makes a tech company, is that the actual asset of a tech company is the data. It's even less the physical product that they push in the market. It's how they use the data to actually segment and channel products to certain client segments. And I think that makes a tech company a real tech company, using everything data-driven.
Right.
And maybe add to this, what is really interesting is that there are kind of two ends of the spectrum in such a kind of a model. So Apple itself has just once per year a release of a product. This is actually not really an incremental kind of innovation process, while companies like Meta and Google are doing continuously new innovations. And these are kind of really two ends of the spectrum how you can run a tech company. And I think that's also interesting to think about all the businesses. Are you more on the spectrum on making one big release, but then really think very carefully about what you release, versus making an incremental process where half of the releases are maybe going in the wrong direction, but you can quickly roll back.
And you keep doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So let's have a glimpse on a tech company, Signify. So of course we're on a great sample, right? Showing a new DNA. But let's one step back. Your business dynamics today, in the context of being a digital company, right, or being a tech company.
Yeah, of course, we made that transformation from a traditional manufacturer of light bulbs, to put it simplistically, to really growing into a tech company, partly as a survival, because if you go from conventional lights to LED lights, there's one disadvantage: those things don't break, which means your recurring revenue is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
The second element is that LED is a low entrance market. So you need to put value add in it to make sure you stay ahead of the competition. And so there were some fundamental drivers, building on what you said, to go into that platform, services, data, customer experience, which is shifting us from a traditional manufacturing company towards a tech company.
Yep.
It's the mix of, I think, all the three things said here, which drives us to that change.
Yeah.
And we're never done.
No. And if you put then that digital ambition in terms of in the context, so what does it provide? Did it provide the speed? Does it provide the culture change? Does it provide the new operating model? Does it provide blah blah, etc.?
I think yes on all, with all the challenges, because as a brick and mortar kind of company, you also have legacy,
Yes.
Right.
which is not always helping, because there is that big block of concrete you need to drag along.
Yep.
We still have glass furnaces in several factories. So you need to get that dynamics in, but the old stuff still needs to work also.
Right.
And so how do you build that and keep the energy in? At the same time, we have big R&D groups where even today they want to have ChatGPT today. On the other hand, I have corporate security who says, hang on, do we want that? But on the other hand, innovation as a tech company like Apple and the others, to stay ahead,
Yeah.
to keep exciting our customers both in B2B and B2C,
Yeah.
you need to stay ahead.
Yeah.
Because yes, we are the market leader, but you need to keep exciting your customers.
Yeah.
Right.
At the same time, you want to keep cost under control, you want to keep security, etc., under control, which I think is one of the biggest challenges in the current climate.
Right.
That begs a bit of a question. If as a tech company you should strive for perfection, or that the execution of releases or the speed of introduction is more important than perfection. Because I think even if you technically look at, for instance, Apple, it's not the best product that is out there, but it creates an experience for which you have lovers and haters. That is more important than having the best product.
Yeah, so in our model we have ventures, we call them, which are basically sort of startups, which are sometimes in-house, sometimes we team up in whatever kind of construction with smaller companies around us to keep looking for that next innovation which we can somewhere embed in our mainstream product, solution, service kind of concept.
Right. So if you bring that to that journey, so to speak, and Daniel perhaps reflect on that. So what is the biggest catch-up then to do, right? So you're from let's say the left side of the spectrum, building up, and Ron was in the right side of the spectrum, changing in, right?
Yeah.
So if you look then to that situation, the catching up, right?
So we touched already on all kind of different elements. So obviously you need to have a kind of a technical DNA. There needs to be data-driven innovation culture, etc., etc. But probably the most important thing that you can set up as a company is that the innovation steps that you do, this is the speed, how you bring kind of increments to customers, need to just drastically improve by 10x, 100x, whatever it is exactly. And this is a little bit of DevOps and all kind of other things that you need to do in your development process. And the interesting effect, because all this kind of innovation increments are essentially compounding. And it doesn't matter so much any longer how big your innovation increment is. So that means what every single release is adding as customer value. If you do this 10 times or 100 times faster, you are certainly more successful than if you make one big bang release. So therefore, for most companies, Apple is a bit an example, a bit a counterexample, but for most companies, it's much better to just release much faster in much smaller increments.
So is speed the trick here, Isaka?
I think so. I completely agree. So I think the increments of finding out what is your iteration cycle, what is your learning cycle that will allow you to incrementally innovate, incrementally go towards that long-term game. And what is our long-term game? I think finding out the balance to to realize this incremental innovation, so that and then actually create a room also for emergence. Because some of the values you may have decided ahead of time, but some of them may also emerge as part of your learning. Right. So, and then being able to embed that in your technology, in your organization, those will be essential in actually helping you transform from what you were before and what you increasingly become as a tech company.
Especially, I think what you see is that customers don't wait.
Yeah,
they are less patient,
certainly,
especially in the current climate, even more becoming more or lesser patient. So that means you need to get the speed right.
Yeah. But it means also, in a step further, that if you think a bit about which kind of maturity level as a kind of a tech company you have, this is not a static measure. So that means you are now somewhere on the spectrum, but tech maturity over time rots. And what it means is, essentially, if you keep the same type of dev processes, product processes, etc., you will be weaker at some point let's say, in the foreseeable future. So you need to very actively nurture and mature this to stay at least on the same level. If you want to improve further, then there's even significantly more work needed.
Yep.
So bring that back to you, Ragnar. So why does the one succeed and the one fails? The other one fails?
Good question.
Probably not an easy question to answer, but
we don't have to talk about your customers.
No.
Right?
The other one.
One of the two. There's one maybe aspect that we haven't touched upon, because a couple of things you can organize. The one thing that is probably pretty hard is touching upon the change of culture that you need. Maybe take the example of Signify. If you have been really good in making the best products for years and years, and you had the ability to take time for that, because it didn't really matter, because that customer segment wasn't impatient, then you strive for product perfection. And what we are agreeing, I think, over here is that it's far better to have increments that are maybe not perfect, but build upon creating more quality and added value in a faster pace of time. Yeah. But creating that culture that you can tell R&D that they need to speed up and imperfect is also perfect, is a big step to make. And that's only in R&D, let alone if you do that in marketing, in sales, in everything. I think that is one of the hardest things to do, changing that culture.
Changing the culture, I think that's excellent. I think to that point, if I may actually, so that change aspect that you just mentioned, so actually how do you bring that across to your, because if you're really, really good at one thing, and then if the environment changes, that actually can become an impediment to you becoming a good thing. So how do you bring these two things together? So what change do you need to do in order to actually seamlessly move from one to the other? I think that's actually a very, very good point. I'm actually curious from your perspective, how did you bring that? Because as sort of you have a very long history. You build generation of technology. Suddenly you become complete tech company. How did you?
Yeah, I think it's not about suddenly. I think we are 100 years old, although we celebrated our 5th anniversary this in May. Yeah. Because 5 years ago we separated from Philips. Yeah. So you don't overnight change. Yeah. Okay. You grow into something, and it could be that products were already for many years in the basement with some super smart engineers. Got it. And somebody has the guts to basically say, hey, this could be a cool product, let's test it out in the market. Yeah. Things change overnight, especially if you have a broad portfolio, different brands. Some brands are, for example, in our B2C, is way ahead. Yeah. But we have multiple brands, and then it's also the trick, how do you play with that? And then culture grows. Yeah.
And for this transition from one culture to another culture, the thing that you actually need to build up is an ability as an organization to unlearn all the kind of the stuff that you have done for the last 30, 40, 50 years. An interesting thing is that is very obvious if you're a company that has this kind of history, but in the same way it applies also to a very young company like Picnic, where we are less than 10 years old, but still there's a lot to be unlearned. For instance, we have made this massive transition from a fulfillment process that has been very much manually driven, manual labor, to a fully robotized automated fulfillment process. And that is such a different way of thinking about how do you steer a process, how do you organize it, how do you incrementally improve it, that you need to basically completely forget and also kind of unlearn everything what you have done in the past in order to be able, like on a white canvas, to start again from scratch your kind of new way of working.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's also, going back to your culture, is that take you, which is a leading brand in the B2C world, is that it started with a light bulb. Yes. A smart light bulb. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the light bulb is not relevant anymore. It's about that smart app on your mobile phone, the experience around it. And so it's also that mindset that a technical engineer who was passionate about that light bulb, but actually the light bulb is not relevant anymore. Mm-hmm.
Even the craftsmanship changed into doing the 3D printing from the amateurs, right? Yeah. Right, great. Reflection on Picnic. Let's have a Moody.
When Picnic was launched in 2015, the expectations were high. Starting out with 3 little electrical vans, the proposition was tested and the results exceeded everyone's expectations. Our test group of a few hundred people turned into thousands of loyal customers who rely on Picnic for their daily groceries. And even more essential, with no delivery costs and on time. But behind these grocery deliveries is a high-tech company that created a way to solve the last mile problem. Mathematicians and software engineers developed a tremendous amount of creative and innovative systems which can get any item to your doorstep in the most sustainable way possible.
So, closing the last mile, or is closed, but what are you overlooking, or perhaps what is overvalued?
I guess with closing you mean probably tackling and solving the last mile problem, which has been for a long time probably the limiting factors that all kind of online food models didn't work in the past. What we have then done is, if you move from last mile, you look to middle mile and first mile and look basically all miles together and think more in a platform way about how can you build an entire platform where you can operate a food business model and whatever kind of other business model you can build on top of it. in a way that not only make forward logistics but also backward logistics. So a very simple kind of innovation that we saw at some point is if you can in a very efficient way deliver stuff to customers, you can also do it in reverse, bring stuff back from customers to basically retailers, which is a very common case, for instance, for fashion, where you simply have a couple of fashion items that you deliver to customers. Not all of them are fitting, therefore you need to bring them back, and that's something what we do for many merchants now.
Right. So if you bring that to your Ragnar in the discussion of embracing that digital transformation, bringing in that technology, are we in certain cases doing IT for IT, tech for tech, and just forget about the business outcome, just forgetting to close it, like in this great example, having closed that last mile from out of a business outcome perspective and not tech by tech?
I think we're stuck a bit in an old paradigm in that sense. And also a topic that we have not touched upon is some of the technology architecture in some of our companies are actually not enabling us to really think at the speed of creating and solving that business problem. We create silos in such a way that they were perfect in doing one thing at mass and standard as possible. But if we wanted to start changing that model, as Daniel's saying, then our infrastructure and our application layer and our information layer is unable to change at the speed of that unless you started as a almost tech company. Exactly. Then it's probably a bit easier than most of the bigger companies here in the Netherlands. Yeah. But definitely, we do too much from an IT for IT perspective instead of a which business problem or actually which customer experience problem are we solving?
Right, and take that let's say that two angles then for you, Ron. So from the one side, the governance, right? And the other side, let's say the competences, right?
Yeah.
So how do you bring that together? Because you also succeed in that, right?
Yeah, but it's also a challenge every day because it's like what Ragnar says. I think if you look to the last years, we had some major events. It was COVID, the things happening today in the world. So agility in all layers is super essential. So do we have the agility in our people? In our platforms and solutions, but at the same time we need to keep exciting our customers, and that is sort of a split which is sometimes hurting and sometimes super cool because it keeps also the people on the edge.
Right.
Yeah, but it requires a lot of things in our governance, in the way we build things. How can we create that flexibility where, especially like for us, we have a 100-year legacy.
Yeah.
Along, which doesn't help to move from left to right every day.
No. Mm-hmm. But in a certain way, agile at scale is not sexy, right?
No.
So how do you
highly overrated?
Yeah, highly overrated. But how do you then, because it's an essential piece, but how do you then get that fire started, right? With all your people every day, and over and over.
I wouldn't know if agile at scale is not sexy, but there have been a lot of attempts that didn't work. I agree with that part. But if you think agile a little bit further, then it's not only the ability to react to new kind of input and insights, etc., but it has a very important angle on the architectural side. Because when we are designing systems, then we are looking not so much for the best architecture, most scalable, most resilient for a specific business problem, not even if you think a business problem further, but we know that what we build in version 1 will not be the final version. So essentially, the only thing what really matters for an architecture is in an evolutionary architecture that you can, with little effort, change 10 times until you have the kind of the final outcome that is the kind of the best possible architecture and solution for a customer.
And in some cases, you don't even know the final outcome. It's a journey.
No, yeah. Well, even more precise, you will not know. If you know it at this point in time, just build the right thing. So therefore, you will do it 10 times, and you just don't know what is increment 2 to increment 10. Yeah. So therefore, optimizing an architecture and a system design in a way that you can do quickly 10 iterations. Yep. And maybe the first one is actually much more expensive than the other architecture would be, is the right architecture to make this kind of fast increments or fast iterations.
Yeah. I think for us it's also sometimes about disconnecting. So the IT for IT, the traditional, the platforms we run in our tech company with the business. And of course, don't forget that we also have manufacturing IT, which is the other layer.
Right, the OT.
And figuring out how, if you all keep connecting it together in a fixed architecture model, you don't move.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So the trick is which elements you can disconnect and allow to go fast. Yeah. But at the same time, there is a core which simply needs to work every day, where reliability, continuity is super important.
Right. So where does it go wrong in many boards, Ragnar? And take that in the context of a lot of talk about ecosystems and a lot of talk about platforms, right? And often I sense in those kind of talks they don't have an F clue.
Yeah. So quite often, like tech company or digital transformation are seen as the customer interaction point only. So investing lots in how you interact with customer, clients, partners, employees, which is a significant part of being a tech and driving digital transformation. Only if you forget that it's an end-to-end game, so it runs through your full organization, where there is supply chain productions, and also delivery. If you forget that you actually make an end-to-end scenario, you're optimizing your customer engagement, but your fulfillment process on the back is scrappy, which is deteriorating your value and your customer experience. So I think really thinking end-to-end, and then looking for decoupling, in a sense, where do I want to really gain speed and make mistakes? Where do I want reliability, scalability, robustness, security, and making that conscious decision is, of course, a hard one if you don't know the exact essence of who you want to be or who you really are. Yeah. And I think that is where lots of companies really struggle to understand what is their real added value into the marketplace. Yes. Moving from a bulb factor to a data game and creating atmosphere and stuff like that, it's a major shift. Right. If you don't know exactly what your proposition is, you're going to make mistakes in those cycles.
Yeah. And in that, you need to be there for the long game. Yeah. You can't be there for just one quarter. And so then it's going back to finding that balance between your quarterly results, your share price evolution, versus what is that vision where I want to go. And that is sometimes a challenging balance.
Right. So your 50 cents, Daniel, on becoming a tech company. So what's the do or don'ts, please?
So there are probably two things that are really relevant. Accelerate your development speed. The product increments, that's number one. And number two, look very much in AI-generated code, which is completely changing the way how we are building software systems in the future.
Right. Same for you, Ron.
Yeah, I think building on that, it's about the right talent. Because I think that is still a big challenge, for at least for us. The right talent to help enable that. Yes, the things you just mentioned, Daniel, are there. But the right people in the right culture to make them successful, enable them to play.
Right.
Because we get an exciting time in front of us.
Right. Isaac?
Yeah, so, and I think one element that was also mentioned, agile, it comes forward, and then obviously there are some success and some also not so successful experiences. I think it's about understanding what is agile trying to bring you. It's about having the right conversations, asking the right questions, so understanding what agility means for you rather than the ceremony, I would say. So, and then this is an essential ingredient that would also help you in your iterations when you want to accelerate your learning, you want to accelerate your development. And if you're having those right questions or those right conversations with the agile values that can help you, and that will actually be a good catalyst for you actually to move towards your goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Did we touch a little, Ragnar?
Definitely, I think we touched on quite some elements. It doesn't make it easier, because the textbook is fairly easy. Ask ChatGPT what digital transformation in a tech company is, and you'll probably get all of these answers. But balancing the short term versus the long term to really make that happen isn't easy, because otherwise we'll all be there, and we're not.
No, but that's why you're doing great, and that's why you're paid tremendously, of course, right? And great value for your companies. Gentlemen, great. Thank you very much. I think it's, again, inspirational. Take a learning from those great leaders here. So, do I have something to mention? No. Later.
We're taught that 1 + 1 = 2. Simple, right? But today's world isn't simple. So, what happens if we look at it from a new angle? Could we make something greater? If we bring together human ingenuity, passion, and experience with the latest technology, we start to make something more. Something we can see in people's lives and feel in the world around them. Building trust for today and tomorrow. And that's the thing. We all know the math. But we need a new way to put it together. Which means we don't just find answers. We never stop looking for them. A passionate community of solvers, coming together in unexpected ways, creating new solutions for a new day. That's the new equation.